Hello. Welcome. I'm gonna explain some stuff. We don't know what it is exactly, but we're working with Expression Ramper X3, which is a tripled expression ramper. It's 3 expression rampers in one box, but it adds a bunch of extra functionality to control like how they interact with each other, how one X3 can interact with another X3. You're hearing a drum loop coming out of Ableton, and it is sending tempo info to Expression Ramper X3, and then we're controlling expression on Float and Pitchfork and the Super Pulsar, and the Super Pulsar is also synced through the Expression Ramper X3. It's a lot happening, and I think it's pretty clear why you would want to do this.
Who wouldn't want to do this?
Lots of sounds you make with this thing. Let's kill the loop and simplify it down. So
Yeah.
I don't know, show people how to use it. Probably makes most sense to just do one ramper at a time, kind of refresh on how a basic ramper works. Because if you're not familiar with our expression ramper, that's a little one pedal device that sends out one expression signal. You can control some things about it. So we will kind of simplify this down to those functions and then expand out from there. So let's see, ramper 1 is connected to the Pitchfork right now. So we're controlling pitch, and let's see, Float is off. We'll turn the Pulsar off as well.
We're controlling 1 full octave on the Pitchfork up with the ramper here.
Awesome. Okay, so expression can basically, the expression on here is going to go from unity signal to an octave up.
Yep.
So we can sweep that. Let's hit the Footswitch to turn it off. And I'm going to go ahead and pull this cable out so it stops tempo syncing.
Oh, yeah.
So now we're down to basic ramper functionality. Yeah, basic idea of it is a ramper can externally control an expression input. So, you take an expression input on a pedal, it's going to take over for some sonic element of the pedal. And ramper helps you make motions within that. So it can move between 2 different positions, maybe in a triangle, a square shape, or one at a time. And so to start, you have to decide what positions you want to move between. So I'm going to go ahead and set the set toggle to A. And that means I'm setting the A position, the starting position. So I can go down all the way up to up. We've got unity all the way at the bottom. And then that octave up at the top. So for A, maybe I'll set it all the way down. We'll have it there. And then to set the B position, I'll switch this toggle to B. You'll see that the light changed here. So this upper LED will tell you if you're at A. Lower LED will tell you if you're at B. So
given that information, I know that we're at B.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we'll go ahead and give it full range. So I'm going to set my B to all the way up.
And also that setting it to the max also means if you change the interval on the Pitchfork, like this is 3 octaves up now, then you get that full range too.
Oh, so. Yeah. So it is, because it is just controlling expression over here. So you have any expression control is like an interaction between the expression controller and the pedal that's actually having its expression set. So you can be as silly or as not silly as you want. And you could also set kind of in-betweens. So if, say, I wanted to move between A being all the way down and B being whatever interval that is. Yeah, somewhere around a fifth. I could do that. So that's the other thing is you can actually limit motion. You're not just moving between like minimum and maximum. You're moving between 2 points that you can choose. And then to choose like how fast you want to move between those things, there's a rate knob. And I'm going to max it out. And it's going to be real silly when I first get started. To set everything in motion, all you have to do is tap the switch. It was very fast. We can slow it down. Now you can really hear the the musicality of a triangle wave sweeping between.
I'm just playing the same 3 notes.
And to stop that motion, I would just hit the foot switch again, and it'll go back to the A position. So it's moving when you engage it. Then when you stop it, it'll go back to A. So that's the basics of like what a ramper does, like what ramping means. We're in the triangle shape right now, so it's moving linearly, but we could also use this toggle to change the shape to a square. And now when we engage that motion, it just snaps to B and then back to A at the same rate as we had earlier, so we can make it happen faster if we want. We could make it happen so slowly that on a square wave,
we might forget
honestly
it's
very
happening.
boring. Yeah, it'll be like a fun surprise, you know. We're like not even that far down, but could presumably carry on a whole conversation before we hit B.
We should try.
Yeah. I actually can't remember how slow this goes, so I really
goes
don't
pretty
have it.
slow.
It goes pretty slow. I'm checking on our triangle shape.
There it went.
See
It
how
just
close
went.
we're. Yeah, so they're tracking. You know, it's like
gotta
the
be
same rate
patient.
but just different shapes, and so I was curious. We can check in on it and see how far between A and B we are based on like how bright or dim those LEDs are. That'll show you where you are. You know, we can come back to it.
Heck yeah.
So those are kind of the basics of it, and how like that's kind of how a normal ramper works. That's how the single expression ramper works. There's also the one-shot shape where if you just want to move between A and B at your own discretion, just every time you switch, it'll go to A, then B, A, B, etc. And you want that to happen more slowly, you turn the rate down, and then it stops when it gets there.
And my favorite thing about this mode is the addition of momentary. So if you go no speed and then you just hold it, it'll go, and then when you let go, it goes back to A.
Yeah.
So depending on the timing, that could be a cool, fun part of a riff or something, where you're just moving between those intervals however you want.
Yeah, and that was something that you had asked for on it. I was like,
I've been asking for that for a long time.
Because that is something that the normal expression ramper didn't have. And
yeah,
it was like, but I want to go like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think it's like a third of a second or something. It's just kind of tuned where it is sensing whether you're holding it or just tapping.
And just to illustrate the difference here, like the pitchfork has a momentary mode, so like I can use the pitchfork in a momentary sense, but leaving it on and doing it like this, you don't get the motion like you have here with that. Like you can just let it be on, stay there, or have it be momentary. So an improvement on what's already available in the pedal, which is great.
Yeah, which is like the whole expression ramper thing. It doesn't make sounds itself,
right?
But it helps your sound makers make new sounds. It expands the possibilities of these things.
Yes.
So that's like one ramper. You'll also notice a little tap switch here. This was a common request of people wanting tap tempo. So we set it in motion on a triangle again. Or you know what? Let's set our B all the way up and make it a square. And so moving between octave up and unison. If I wanted to tap in a tempo, just hit this switch. And it'll lock in after just 2 taps, but you can if you keep tapping it, it'll kind of average out and help, like, if you can never tap perfectly accurately, so if you tap it multiple times in a row,
I'm the only person on earth who can do that. But for everyone else, they need something like that,
So that's just a fun little addition where you're like, you don't have to find exactly where something is on the rate knob. You just go, I know it sounds something like this.
And if you use that as your master tap tempo, you've got tap out as well. So other things can be controlled by this in more than an expression sense. You can control their speed if they have the right kind of clock inputs and whatever.
Yeah. There's kind of a whole clocking system here that's used to sync from external into an expression ramper X3 and from an expression ramper X3 out to other stuff.
Yep.
Let's see. Maybe we can show some of the secret shapes next.
Secret shape.
So
The forbidden shapes.
we've been working on the pitchfork. Maybe we move over to
The float?
float. Is that on ramper 2?
Yep.
Classic
We're in a
musical stuff.
band pass filter, the most aggressive, very high resonance.
And so float is just set to like control the whole range of the cutoff through expression.
I like using it in high pass mode generally, with A being not the minimum on here set not at full 0, but at like a really big low frequency. So when it's sitting there, it's just like super huge. But then when you move the maximum, I set to about here so that I get like a cocked wah kind of sound with that,
nice.
and then I can move between those two
Nice.
sounds.
So, yeah. So you've kind of preset your min max over on the float
Yes.
side, so we can just have
Yeah.
our A be all the way to the left and our B be all the way to the right, so we get that full range.
Yep. Isn't that wonderful?
It's so silly. I love it. All right, so I'm gonna bring our rate down a little bit, and like we'll talk about that toggle in a second here. You know, we'll get there, but we want to talk hidden shapes first, because a lot of people have talked about wanting random stuff.
Mhm.
They want a random wave shape in their expression ramper, so we put 3 in this one because it's X3.
Third
so-
time's a charm.
Third time's
also.
a charm. So you've got triangle, square, and one shot here. And there are 3 different random shapes that are kind of like thematically linked to triangle, square, and one shot. So there's a smooth random where it's going to move linearly between stuff. There's square random or sharp random. That's kind of your classic sample hold where it just moves to a new random thing, snapping right to it.
Be careful, you don't hurt yourself on the sharp random.
It's just very sharp random.
Yeah.
And then one shot random, which is it's a one shot thing, you know, so it does something every time you hit the foot switch, except what it does is just go to a new random spot every time.
Yes. So good.
So to access those, you're just going to hold the tap switch. And so if I hold that down, you'll notice all the LEDs turn off. So that just tells you, hey, you're holding the tap switch. And use this shape switch to pick which type of random I want. So let's listen to the smooth random first. We'll make it pretty fast.
So it's just moving between these different random values.
Yeah, so it's basically just saying between A and B, every time that like the timing cycles around, it goes to a different spot. And because it's smooth, it like smoothly moves,
Right,
moves
yeah,
to that new
you're getting
random
the
spot.
values in between as it goes.
Yeah,
Yep.
so you're getting that motion where it's random, but it doesn't feel too jumpy.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
So it's still within the parameters you've given it of like A to B, but just uncertain.
Yeah.
And then if we wanted to do the sharper random, again, just hold that, switch it to the square setting. So now we're sharpening.
Classic sample
Yeah.
hold kind of sound.
And especially with like resonance on a filter up, you really hear those like the way it kind of bubbles and snaps. And then of course, one shot random. So just every time I hit this switch, it's gonna hit a different random spot. We wanted to do the same thing on our pitchfork,
This is gonna be fun.
like some monsters.
I'm just playing the same note over and over. You're the one controlling the pitch. Heck yeah.
So that's the thing you could do.
That's something
with this
people have been
stuff.
wanting for a long time.
I really do love that though, the one shot random of just whenever I hit the switch, it'll be something different.
Well,
It's-
and the thing to remember is we're testing this on pitch, so it's very easy to hear what's happening. But if you attach this to a depth on a vibrato or something that's going to be more subtle, you're going to get something interesting. I can't tell you what because it'll be
Yeah.
random, but it'll unlock something that I think would be really interesting on stuff that you may not have thought to use it like that before.
Yeah, it'll be surprising and hopefully inspire more musicality and less. Aren't pitch shifts funny?
Yeah, that's fine too.
Let's check out these sync toggles. So the reason we added sync is that we thought if there's going to be 3 expression rampers in one box, surely they should be linked in some way, and kind of talked about different ways that you can link them. Maybe it's just the rate, or maybe it's the A and B or whatever. Ultimately decided for basically like 3 different sync modes. One where it's just totally off, so the ramper is its own thing, unrelated to ramper 1. One where it's rate synced, so it borrows the tempo of ramper 1, but everything else, like whether it's moving or not, it's A position, it's B position, those all stay independent.
And it's waveform, right?
And it's waveform as well, yeah, the whatever shape it's doing. And then all sync, and all is basically the like most straightforward, where it's just whatever ramper 1 is doing, do exactly that if you're set to all.
Yep.
So, in this case, if we put that toggle at all, they're gonna move perfectly together, and you can look at the LEDs to see that they're like, you were controlling a filter and a pitch, so it's like when they move perfectly together, it still isn't actually it's like the pitch is changing and the filter is changing in different ways. Even
pitchfork was off though. You want to try that again?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. This is gonna be silly, but it'll be cool.
It was a lot more musical than I thought it was going to be, and that explains why. So obviously that's super silly because you're doing random pitches.
I don't think it's silly.
It's deadly serious. But if you wanted to say, like, because you're globally synced, so this is always going to follow this one, maybe we make that just a square shape, so it's always going to snap between A and B. And so that way on the pitchfork, it's not going to hit the in-between stuff. Yeah. So. So you can have those motions that are linked musically.
That's so cool.
Or if you wanted to not match everything about it, like I just had the thought of, oh, maybe we could flip the direction, keep them tempo synced, but make pitchfork move the opposite direction.
Right.
You're going to go to rate sync. And so now the rates are going to be synced, but like A and B and shape and all that stuff is still independent. So yeah, we'll set that to square as well. Let's set A all the way up and B all the way down. So it's going to move in the opposite direction from before.
Right. So all you did was invert A and B there. Basically.
Exactly. Yeah. And so now we'll kick this on and kick this on too. Oh yeah, we should talk about subdivisions too. For now, we'll set them off.
Yeah. So slow. There we go.
So now it's like the same idea, but an opposite motion on the not on the pitchfork. The opposite is on the float now. I keep getting mixed up on what's where, but yeah.
Because visually there, yeah.
Yeah. But so yeah, still the idea is I wanted to flip one and not flip the other. So
and you did it.
And I did it
Great
perfectly
job.
just as I planned.
Yep.
And so you could also have it like still rate synced, but maybe this one's a triangle now. So
give me triangle on that pitch and not the filter. That's gonna be good. Oh yeah. You ever wanted to shoot a laser gun, folks?
This will do it.
Yeah, there you go.
So that's the basics of syncing. I'll also talk about the subdivision. So that is the one kind of hidden control when you are rate synced, because you might want it to move twice as fast or twice as slow. And so at that point, changing your rate means changing your subdivisions. So in the middle, they're going to be exactly tempo matched. As I start to move below noon, it'll move twice as slow. and then 3 times as slow.
Wow.
It's really unsettling. And you can actually go down to like 4 times as slow as your main one. So 2, 3, 4. I have to count whenever I'm testing because I lose track of where we are. If we go above noon, it's going to be multiplier. So you want to move twice as fast. Or 3 times as fast.
Hell yeah.
Or 4 times as fast.
Man.
So that's the rate syncing of it all, and the subdivisions to give you even a little more control. And everything that we've been saying about Ramper 2 as we're exploring that syncing is true of Ramper 3 as well. And they're always going to sync to Ramper 1. So if you make Ramper 3 globally synced, you see it's globally synced to 1, not to 2. Rate synced, same deal. So think of 1 as like your primary. If there's any syncing that's happening, it's looking at what Ramper 1 is up to.
The only one that doesn't have the sync option.
Yeah, exactly. It's the one that can't be synced because it is the syncer.
It is the King
Syncer.
It's a good band name.
So, you mentioned earlier how there's like all these other, we're sending a tap out to the super pulsar, and we had a drum loop going from Ableton earlier, and it was getting tempo info from there. So to talk about that tap out jack, basically this is just going to send a pulse on the quarter notes of whatever tempo Ramper 1 is at. So right now, just every time you see that top light hit its peak, this tap out jack is sending a pulse, and you can just use a TS cable, plug it into something that can receive like essentially a tap tempo input signal, but pulse style, like the super pulsar, and it will tempo sync. So
and we're controlling.
And I'm gonna maybe we just make it.
So, and we're doing
stop this guy for now.
2 things here where we're controlling super pulsar with expression and also sending clock to it. So, which is really cool because we can have the movements be in sync with the clock. So if we're like, well, I'll let you describe it. We're gonna mess with the depth of the
So I'm starting us off with just max depth on the super pulsar. So I am using the set toggle, putting it at A, moving this knob all the way up. I've got it unsynced and it's not moving right now. So
I turned float off real quick.
Okay, good call. Yeah, we'll focus
simplify
on
it a little
pulsar.
bit.
Yeah. So the depth is maxed out right now. I'm just changing the A. It can make it less deep because we're just hanging out at A, so we can avoid that stuff right now. But now I'm gonna tap over here.
And the super pulsar we set it to do a much faster division of the clock coming in.
Hear it a little more clearly. So it's just a really nice way of having further integration of you've already got 3 expression controls, but you can also rate sync an additional device.
Yep. Ooh. Depending on the device too, it might have to think about whether you updated the tempo.
There's often a catch-up time, because it's like waiting for the second pulse to come in,
and it came in sooner or later than it thought.
But so, like you were talking about earlier, we're at maximum depth right now. We can set our B position to minimum depth, so the motion will be A to B goes maximum to minimum, and we can turn that ramper on, and we'll go ahead and tempo sync it as well, so that this is now changing depth through the expression jack while sending tempo information through the tap output. And so the super pulsar is moving between maximum depth and minimum depth while also
according to the clock,
the cycle. Speed it up again.
Hit one more time, that button.
we'll flip those depth directions around. I think that'll.
Oh yeah, you can invert the waveform basically by doing that. And then if I believe if I press play on the sample, like we'll be able to just play with it.
Oh yeah, we can plug that back in and get
yeah, I forgot.
Yeah, so that's
the next thing. That's jumping ahead.
But we cover. I mean, that's the tap output. That's the whole idea, is that you can send tempo information out to something that can receive those pulses and understand them as a tempo.
Yes.
So there's also this tap/expression input jack on the Expression Ramper X3, and it's multifunction. So it can receive an expression control, and we'll talk about what that means in a little bit. It can receive an external foot switch, and we will definitely talk about that in a little bit. And it can also receive an external pulse. And so the really fun trick with that is that because you're outputting a pulse and an Expression Ramper X3 can receive a pulse, that means you can sync multiple Expression Rampers across each other.
Theoretically, as many as you want.
Yeah, you just keep daisy chaining them through and they will keep syncing to each other.
Yes.
So if you say, I appreciate that you made Expression Ramper X3, but I was really looking for Expression Ramper X6, buy two of them, tap out to tap in, configure it that way, and you're good to go. And so maybe we can talk about how we get to those configurations, because there are dip switches inside to assign whether you want it to be expression or a foot switch in or a pulse in.
Right.
So I guess we don't need the paper right now because it's already set correctly for what we're trying to do, but just to show the people.
Show the people.
It's
Here, I'll hold it.
See if we can get it.
A lot of cables here, folks.
It's these little blue switches here, and it's labeled tap/expression setting, I believe. And it's so 3 individual little dip switches and an on indicator, and you can check your manual to see how to set them to achieve whatever result you're trying to achieve. So we'll leave them that way for now and go ahead and tempo sync just to finish this like stereo pulsar example. So I'm plugging in a TS cable that is receiving clock pulses from Ableton, correct?
Yes.
That's how you set it up?
Yep.
And so if we hit this little button, get the drum loop going. So every time it's off, you have no depth and it's not tremoloing, and then that depth comes in and you realize that the tremolo has been perfectly tempo synced. Change your subdivisions over here.
And this stuff's really fun if you just make a really long sustained kind of sound.
Just let it ride.
Yeah, I was gonna say turn that on. Now the board is doing its own thing. Now you can take off, have a beer.
All right. So now we'll turn that drum loop back off.
I got it.
So far we have been using the expression/tap input to receive pulses from Ableton, and so we're tempo syncing with that drum loop. But you might want to kind of simplify things, and maybe you're just frustrated by this little tap switch and you want an external foot switch, something along the lines of this little guy.
Many people use pedals with their feet, I'm finding.
People are all about stomping foot switches.
Yeah.
And so this guy, this little guy we're calling Scooch, and it's a foot switch connected to a jack that is used to externally control a tap tempo, or anything else that just needs an external foot switch with a momentary action on it. And so to configure Expression Ramper X3 to use that, we're going to check out those dip switches, and we're going to they're all off right now because we were just doing pulse input. So we'll flip 3 to on to tell it we're doing switch input.
So if you tried to send it a pulse now, it would ignore it.
Yeah, it would. I don't know. It might see it, but it's like why use it the wrong way around?
Yeah. All right.
And so then we're gonna plug in TS cable for that input. And the other end of it is going to go to Scooch. And let's go ahead and get ramper 1 moving and start tapping. It's a little silly to demonstrate a foot switch by hand like this, but you picture it. It's on the floor. You got your big delay moment and your tempo's all wrong, and you just go, all I need is this. So that's just a handy little thing that really pairs well with the expression
it's a
ramper.
footy little thing.
It's
sorry.
Right. Okay. Okay. So that's just a footy little thing. That,
What?
And then the last thing is expression input. So we're gonna flip some dips again. We're going to check our trusty manual because we forget sometimes. So
Smart.
For TRS expression input, set 1 on, 2 on, 3 off. Okay, so I think they're all going opposite now, which makes sense. We're telling it we're looking for expression, and we need a little voltage on the ring to do the divider thing. And we don't need any voltage on the tip because we're doing full expression. So using that dip switch configuration, this jack is now ready to receive, and I'll go ahead and unplug the TS cable because now it's going to be looking for a TRS cable attached to an expression device. And you might be thinking, like, why would I need expression into the triple expression ramper device? Basically what it does is it controls this green knob here. So kind of how everything references the tempo information from ramper 1. Expression is also really interested in ramper 1, and it's just going to set this knob.
It's obsessed with ramper 1.
It can't stop talking about ramper 1.
It's kind of a lot.
So it's, in the same way you would set your A position using the knob, B position using the knob, rate using the knob, you can set those with expression instead. So, for example, you could use, and this is over the top, but why not, right?
Yeah.
You could use the output of ramper 3 and plug it into the expression input that's controlling this knob on ramper 1.
I had never considered this.
And fluctuate the rate. So you could have it move slower and faster according to the rate set here.
Okay.
Which I haven't actually tried yet, but I'm so confident about the theory that I feel like this is the moment for it.
All right.
So do we have an extra TRS cable?
Where's that one? Yeah.
And we're gonna turn sync off.
This is crazy. This might explode.
This is definitely this is the exhibit meme moment of
if you're seeing this in the final cut, it's because it actually worked.
I think I was jumping the gun a little bit in ramping a ramper. How about we start with just using an expression slider? So TRS cable going into expression slider. This is now this knob. So if the set switch is set to A,
woo,
that takes over. So I can still say set A down to the bottom. And this is just a way of turning it into a standard expression controller. Another fun trick actually on this mode, if you need an expression splitter, essentially. So if you want to send one expression control out to multiple devices at once, we can go ahead and turn these on. Because these are all globally synced now.
Oh, you got master control.
Yeah, so I'm just setting A over here, and these are set to sync all, so they're just doing exactly what ramper 1 is up to, so.
Yeah. And there you have it.
So that's a
That's
fun
really
little
cool,
trick
actually.
with that. That is one of the hidden features. There's just a lot you can do with it because of the kind of like modularity of it, or just the way that everything links to everything else. So now we can set our B all the way down, make sure that A is still all the way up, go down to rate, get some motion happening. And now it's setting our rate. So that's the idea, is now that it's moving between A all the way down, B all the way up, or I guess vice versa.
Okay, so at the bottom of the slider, it's the slowest speed, and the top is the fastest?
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool. That's always one of the joke things where I was like, oh, cool ramper. I'd love to ramp it, though.
Yeah.
Like, you actually did it.
And so now what we can actually do, now that we've got it set to rate, so we're not going to mess up our A and B settings by plugging those into another ramper.
Right.
Now we can just manipulate the rate. So now I'm going to do the patch in thing. Where I'm going to, instead of patching into an expression slider, I'm just going to patch into ramper 3.
Wild.
So now, theoretically, we can set 2 different rates, essentially.
Oh, yes.
There we go. Okay. So it's a bit of silliness, but it's a thing you can, if you do want to ramp the motions
That's
of
really
an existing
cool.
ramper, you can do that using
I've
the
never
expression
heard like a pitchfork or whammy type effect sound like that. Like the term sound design keeps coming to my head because like these are sounds you can't make without this. Even though the pedal has the capability to do it, which is so interesting. Like this is the pitchfork making this sound, but nothing's ever controlled it like this. That's so cool.
And just out of curiosity for how much it'll break it, let's go ahead and all sync just to see. They're probably just fighting each other now. There we go. All right, so now they're rate synced. So ramper 3 is changing the rate of ramper 1 and at the same time getting resynced to the rate on ramper 1. So it's like doing a weird catch-up thing where it's syncing to itself.
So I have to stop here for a second and say this is modular. Like we're not dancing around it anymore. This is the thing.
And this is modular by people who don't know modular still, but keep stumbling into concepts that are.
That's an important caveat. Yeah, I agree. Oh. That's so cool because you're not using a random mode, which does exist, but it feels.
And there is regularity to it. Like you can find the pattern.
It's a random but repeatable thing.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Let's see what happens with me.
I feel like I'm doing a guitar solo on the Battle of Los Angeles. Man.
So I mean, I think that kind of covers it. That's the fullness of Expression Ramper X3. I mean, we've done some cool setups, but there's obviously just so much more you can do because the whole idea is you're controlling a filter, a pitch, the depth of a tremolo, the tempo of that same tremolo. It is a way of coaxing new sounds out of your existing stuff and adding these further links across devices. Again, these devices aren't talking to each other, but because Expression Ramper X3 is talking like within itself,
yes,
it can create new links across.
And that a lot of new sounds I think could be found by controlling 2 or more pedals at once in somewhat of a linked way. So it becomes a more cohesive sound. Like clearly there's some interaction expression wise, but not sound wise, which is really fun.
Yeah. So that's it. So
Well, and then the last thing, if anyone wanted to take this even a step further, you include MTET, which means you could go MIDI. You could take MIDI and MIDI control the expression output into here and have some sort of crazy control over the thing we just did.
Yeah, some sort of additional something.
Someone go explore that and see what happens.
Exactly. Try various connections. And one thing I'm realizing we didn't even address this. You'll see this in the manual, and you probably know it about Ramper 1, but you'll notice some jumpers here and some socketed ICs. That just helps with greater compatibility with outside expression devices. So these are all essentially like a 50K pot, but some devices might like a 10K or 100K. You can swap these out. The part codes are available. You can move these jumpers around depending on whether you need TRS, like old blood style, and that matches, Chase Bliss and Maris, and all kinds of companies use it that way. But certain companies have the ring and tip flipped around, so you can use jumpers to do that. Certain companies want TS instead of TRS connections. You can use the jumpers to do that as well. So there's a lot of stuff in there to make it compatible with a wider variety of devices. It's not going to work with every single expression input, but there's more information in the manual and online and everything about what it does work with. And obviously there's a variety of manufacturers that it works great with.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
Go get one. It's available now.
Thanks for explaining it all.
Anytime.